Hello and welcome. My name is Pawa, and I've been playing WoW for over 15 years, on and off. So this video is meant to discuss and hopefully inform on the meta or large-scale ideas about tanking in Wrath of Lich King. So I've played every class and almost every spec in Raid. I was not the best at any of those specs, but I was definitely valuable because I could fill slots which were necessary to complete raids. Whatever you needed, I was there with it, and there were very few raids I was a part of which we could not complete because we were missing a particular class or a spec, just because I could switch to it. So I had many fun experiences playing in Wrath Lich King and learned a lot. So I want to pass along some of the things I learned, just because Classic has rolled into Wrath. Um, if you find some of the things I talk about useful or entertaining, please hit like and tell me why, or hit dislike, and if you can be bothered, tell me why. That's it for the intro. Come back to the substance. So, what is a tank? A tank is whoever has aggro, like that fire mage that just crit and the boss is walking over to slap them. A tank is actually the person that controls the battlefield and the pace of the raid. So a tank has many responsibilities, of which the top three are to position the boss so the DPS can DPS safe and free, and to move the boss so as the encounter mechanics require you to move the boss. The second one is to hold aggro, and the third one is to not die. That's how you control the battle. Um, so let's talk about the positioning responsibilities. So the positioning is to hold the is basically to hold the boss in a place where the damage dealers are able to do their highest damage possible and to take the least amount of damage, so they can freely DPS. The tank must never sit or crouch or turn their back to whatever it is that they're tanking. There is a whole separate discussion on what is the front, what is the back, how parry, dodge, crit, and crushing blow actually all um, are included in that discussion. And it's a geometry discussion of all things. So I might link to a video that talks about it, or I might create a video about it. It's lots of nuances, lots of things to talk about there. So yeah, second right. So aggro and threat are not the same thing. Aggro is whoever the boss is attacking, and threat is a cumulative list uh, counter on the boss, which you can see with an add-on. Um, so over here we have Omen. Uh, Omen was the best for Wrath when I was playing retail. Um, I think it's currently going to be Details. Details is quite up to date for Classic anyway. So Threat on Details is actually pretty accurate. But for my purpose here, I'm using Omen. What was I going to talk about? Oh yeah, I wanted to. So Threat is a whole nother discussion on. Um, yeah, I'll probably do another discussion video regarding that. But just to skip along, range DPS do 130% threat when they're in melee range to the boss, but melee will only ever do 100% threat in melee range. So that's just something I want to mention. For some reason, I lost my previous recording, so I'm just gonna do it again. Okay, so let's say you still have the interest in becoming a tank. What kind of a tank should you become? And what kind of a tank should you become is not a question regarding what class you should play. It's a question regarding the different styles of tanking that there are, or the different schools of thought in the tanking. So each tanking spec will have um, certain nuances, certain builds with your gemming and your enchanting will be different. But the three main differences in ideas are avoidance tank, mitigation tank, and health tank or EHP tank. EHP meaning effective health after mitigation, etc. Blah blah blah. So you have to choose between one of these three. let's say you're a pally. You can be an avoidance tank, which means you're gonna try to stack as much on your priority list for defensive stats. You'll do avoidance first, mitigation second, and health last. Uh, as far as overall taking the least amount of damage. But this is wrong. There's a long discussion about it, and I am going to go into it right now. So, avoidance is focused on taking the least amount of damage possible, but it has the lowest health pool. So, the amount of damage that you do take when you do take it, from the healer's perspective, is scarier because you're gonna end up on lower health than the health tank. Um, it sounds a bit confusing, but that's exactly what it is. You might dodge two hits in a row and then get smacked down to 10% from the third hit, whereas the health tank might be getting hit down to 70% with the first hit from the boss, and then down to 30% from the second hit, but the heals already incoming topped you off, and the third hit takes you back down to 70%. So yeah, that's why Avoidance Tank is not that good. Um, I remember Excel. Fucking, there's so much to talk about. Um, righto. So the other reason why Avoidance Tank is not as good as the other tanking specs is because not all of the damage that you receive is physical melee swing damage. And there's going to be a lot of spell damage, a lot of area effect damage from your encounter. So avoidance tanks can't really avoid spells. Yeah, you can become immune to spells for a little while as a DK, um, but it's a very um, inconsistent way of reducing the amount of damage you take over the duration of the fight. Which brings me to the second type of tank you can be. So much to talk about. Okay, so the second type of tank you can be is a mitigation tank. A mitigation tank's ideology is I'm going to get hit, but I'm gonna make that hit be as low as possible. So um, the boss would normally hit me for say 10,000. I'm gonna try to make that about 5,000. Um, with a certain build, you can do that. Maybe not the exact numbers, but um, you can reduce the amount of damage you do take. But that's still not the best type of tank you can be. Why? Because the amount of okay, you got to think of it as percentages. So if you're a mitigation tank and you can reduce 10,000 hit down to 5,000, but an EHP tank has another 20,000 more health. So as a percentage of health lost, you will take the same damage as a health tank, as a mitigation tank. Um, yeah, it's maybe it is simpler to understand than what I'm making it out to be. But yeah, you're gonna take basically the same damage as a health tank, as a mitigation tank. Um, but you have the but as a health tank, you have the bonus of having a bigger health pool for the stuff that you can't mitigate. So spells and area effects from boss encounters. Um, and there's a whole nother perspective to this, which I still haven't talked about. So healers. Um, you got to remember that you're not the only one getting gear. Healers are getting gear, and they're able to heal you a lot harder than they could have last week. So you might have 10% more health, and the healers have 10% stronger heals. So to them, the mana efficiency um, questions, they don't become issues. As they're getting better geared, they can keep you up easier, and it's less stressful for them to see you at lower percentage health. So if you're a healer and you have to heal a tank which is at 10%, you're shooting yourself. Whereas if you have to heal a tank which is at 50%, your underwear is still dry. So yeah, and as you're getting more geared, you're able to keep up tank easier and easier as you go. So yeah, you're not the only one in the raid as a tank. You gotta worry about the healers too. Um, so yeah, it's not only your own responsibility as a tank to stay alive; it's also the healer's responsibility. Um, Basically, yeah, all you are is as tanks and healers, you're enablers for DPS. That's all you are. You don't do the damage as a tank or a healer. You do the threat. You do the aggro, and together as a team, you stay alive. As a tank, it's your responsibility if the healer dies. As a healer, it's your responsibility if the tank dies. And as a DPS, it is your own damn fault if you die. So, yeah, that's that for now.